all emergency vehicles, the tiller-driven fire truck was born out of necessity. It has evolved around the skyscrapers and grid-pattern streets of American cities. The success of a modern emergency vehicle is governed by two simple but precious concepts. Is it fast and agile enough to get to the scene of the emergency on time? And does it carry the right equipment to save lives? The earliest ambulances could hardly be called emergency vehicles at all. They were simply the collection and delivery vehicles of tragedy.
This is a W.G. Ducrot, built by Captain W.G. Ducrot, sometime between 1922 and 1926 at the Wandsworth Works. The engine in the vehicle is a Daimler-Benz. This vehicle was mainly used for fever patients. So you'd have been taken with this vehicle to a fever hospital. If you didn't end up there, then you would end up on one of the boats on the River Thames. They took you down to one of the jetties and they took you out on a boat onto a fever ship. The charge for the ambulance then was £0.50, 2 and 6pence. 12.5 pence now, but cost £0.50 then. When these guys were earning 12 shillings and 6pence a week, was a lot of money. Getting in and out is extremely difficult. In actual fact, the door only opens as wide as that. That's it. Now you've got to get in there, and if you're 6'2", you've got a problem. To open the side window, if you turn the handle, the window just keeps on going up and down. The other thing about it, of course, there's lots and lots of brass on this vehicle. Brass door handles, brass headlight, brass roof light, brass on the petrol cap, needed loads and loads of polishing. The coachwork, it's wood and metal, except for the roof. The roof is actually made of tarpaulin substance, which is made the same as the old aircraft years ago. It was stretched across the roof and weighted down and then doped until the roof was absolutely solid. You can actually walk on this roof even though it is canvas. It also had central heating. Today we have the paraffin heaters. This one was actually central heated from the engine, and the central heating pipes go right the way round the inside of the vehicle. We have had it running and used it, and it's quite warm in the back once you get it going.
The elegant lines of the coach-built Ducrot came from the era of the horse. Its predecessors in the London ambulance service were simply horse-drawn coaches for the sick. Early fire appliances were called fire engines because of the steam-driven pump mounted on the horse-drawn carriage with the fireman. The basic principles of firefighting have always been the same. You need a pump to put out the fire and a ladder or escape to rescue the victims. And you need to get there quickly. In the early days, firemen needed an extra dose of courage to ride on the outside of the fire engine, a tradition that carried on in the motor-driven fire engines of the 1930s.
Most of the fire engines before the war were these type here, where you stood outside on the ledge alongside the fire engine and hung on like grim death, because if you didn't, well, there were several firemen had been injured and killed through being thrown off. You stood up in all weathers. I've seen firemen come back covered in snow like snowmen. And, but it was accepted as part of the job. We fancied ourselves, in my old brigade, we had brass helmets, plenty of brass buttons, and I suppose we stood on, as a pose on those engines of old days as we rode through the streets, feeling very, very glamorous. Not half.
Despite its toy town appearance, this 1934 Leyland Cub could reach speeds of up to 50 miles an hour. With its own wheeled escape ladder and a pump that could deliver 500 gallons a minute, there was a real chance that if the alarm was raised in time, the fire might be extinguished and lives saved.
They used to have street fire alarms. They were posts dotted around the neighbourhood in street corners, which sent a signal into the watchroom here, showing where the fire alarm was pulled. It was one of those things where you broke the glass and pulled a knob. The only thing was they incited little boys to break the glass and pull the knob, and of course that was a false alarm.
In the days before superheroes and Nintendo, young boys dreamt about driving fire engines like this 1939 Leyland Tiger.
I do actually remember it going to fires as a young boy. You know, I used to watch it going along the streets, past my house. So I've had quite a long love affair with the vehicle. It's got an 8.8 litre Leyland petrol engine, and it drives its own fire pump, which is a Gwyn. And the deliveries are here, and this is duplicated on the other side. This is capable of pumping water at the rate of 700 gallons per minute. On the top of the fire engine, we see the escape ladder, which is a 50-foot Merryweather. The Braidwood body is really a traditional design of fire engine body that stems from the horse-drawn era. The men would sit on the side, and when they arrived at a fire, they would just jump off and get straight to work. It was deemed the sort of most quickest and efficient way of getting to work after arrival at a fire. But of course it was much more dangerous as well when motor vehicles' speeds increased. You know, this is capable of 60 miles an hour. So if somebody wasn't paying attention when they were going to a fire, they could easily get thrown off, and some did. Brass was used because it doesn't corrode like a lot of aluminium alloys. This blank cap just comes out as easy as anything, and this probably hasn't been removed for quite a long time now. It operates so nicely. But it's also a tradition. You know, if you can polish it, then let's have it in the fire brigade.
The two air fire engines, they say, they were Leylands. One was an escape similar to this one here, and the other one was a pump. The life-saving appliance, which was the escape, went out first, followed by the pump. And when you got to, say it was an ordinary fire, you went to a fire hydrant and put a pipe in the ground, connected up your pump. Other firemen rolled out hose and directed the water onto the fire. Years ago, the fire hose wasn't rubber-lined as it is now. It was only canvas. So when you first turned the water on, you had a wonderful display of water coming out of all kinds of little jets all over the place, and you got drenched before the hose settled down to become waterproof.
This 1938 Leyland Tiger is fitted with a 104-foot Metz ladder. Metz was a German company that made beautifully engineered turntable escape ladders that were far more advanced than the British wooden-wheeled escapes. Ironically, a year later, this same appliance was to fight fires in London's docklands caused by German bombs. Wallington was just one of hundreds of quiet suburban fire stations around London that was about to get very busy.
Here was an alcove where the sliding pole went down to the engine room.
That's right. That's how I'm trying to place
it was
that.
It was rather, as you know, Ivor, rather grim, because when you slid down that pole, you landed right in front of the fire engine.
True. Very true.
While most people believed there would be peace, the threat of war prompted the formation of the Auxiliary Fire Service. Volunteers like men's outfitter Ivor Morris found himself getting his hands dirty alongside full-time fireman Charles Gallahawk.
Before the war, they decided to increase the fire service for war purposes, and they recruited firemen from all walks of life round here.
Ken Bailey.
Morris Stiles. So many of them have gone on their last great call.
That's Eric Haywood.
Eric Haywood, yes, you should have be coming.
The undertrained and barely prepared AFS was soon to have a baptism of fire.
To these chappies who came in for the wartime, they did a wonderful job. Without any experience, the firemen, regular firemen, had never seen fires in their life like the fires during the war.
While the Blitz raged at night, in the daytime the ingenuity of the AFS volunteers turned all kinds of commandeered vehicles into makeshift fire appliances. It may look like Dad's army, but without these part-time firemen, the battle against the Blitz would have been lost.
Each local authority had to arrange the auxiliary fire service for their own needs and their own money, because the Home Office never granted them much money, so they had to use private cars, taxis, lorries and so forth to tow the trailer pumps.
But many of the vehicles were not up to the job.
There was a 3-ton Bedford, and somebody had unloaded that there, knowing it was rubbish, onto the corporation. And they'd been so glad to get hold of anything, I suppose, at that time, that they accepted it, because it was clapped out.
Fortunately, Britain's early warning systems gave Reg Maxwell and the AFS men of Portsmouth time to get their clapped-out Bedford started.
You had a yellow alert, which meant to say Jerry had set off from home and was on his way over to England. You had a purple alert next, which said that he was coming your way, and then you had your red alert, which meant to say usually that he was over the top. When the yellow came through, you had to push this 3-ton Bedford up the length of the street, all of you, until it fired and you got it going, and then you brought it back. By that time, the purple, if it was going to be a red, the purple had come through and the red had started, and you just connected up and went straight away on your rounds. You're not supposed to say these kind of things, but let's face the fact, and it happened to lots and lots of other people, you were absolutely terrified and scared, but you really enjoyed yourself. Hanging on the side of a car there with a trailer pump behind you, guns blazing, shrapnel falling and everything else, you had a vicarious thrill.
Thrilling it may have been, but so much was learnt in the Blitz that it became the birthplace of the modern fire service. In 1941, the formation of the National Fire Service meant that at last there was a nationwide firefighting force to await Hitler's doodlebugs and V-bombs. The equipment, like this Austin lorry and Guardian pump, was still rudimentary, but at least everything was painted the same colour, and firemen were firmly established as the heroes of suburbia. When the war came to a close, the National Fire Service was dissolved, and local authorities were once again in control.
Building a fire appliance is a specialized job done by specialized firms. Lives and property may depend on getting there without a hitch, and an Austin product never lets...
Manufacturers like Austin were anxious to get in on the post-war spending boom and persuade county halls across Britain to buy their vehicles.
And this ambulance is another specialized vehicle with an Austin chassis.
London, being the largest and richest county council, designed and commissioned specialist vehicles. This Daimler ambulance was a conversion from a hearse. It was as much a part of the 50s as rationing.
This one was built in 1947. It continued in use right through until 1965. A large engine, 6-cylinder petrol, and of course, being a Daimler, it was fast, smooth, nice big bulbous tyres, low slung. When it was originally brought on the scene, it bounced quite a lot on the back. So what they did, they put a 600-weight composite floor in the back to weigh the back down. And that made it very, very smooth. There was a little problem with that, was the fact that it had wire brakes. And consequently, with the weight, it wouldn't stop. So then they changed the braking to the servo system, and problem solved. And even today, this one is still beautiful to drive.
The Daimler represents one of the great moments in British ambulance design. The next generation was a compromise. This 1958 Wandsworth was based on a sluggish Austin delivery van. With its fiberglass body, it had a veneer of modernity, but in reality was unstable and drafty. But resting in the corner of a workshop in North London is ambulance heaven, in the form of the ill-fated SOVAM.
This is the Reeves SOVAM ambulance. It was built in 1971-72 after the Ogle report. And the Ogle report said that an ambulance vehicle should be as a casualty on wheels. And if you look in the back of a modern-day vehicle, you'll see that most of the equipment, style and stowage is made from this vehicle. It's strange, actually, but it's got a wheel on each corner, unlike any other vehicle. The wheels are spread right at the back and right at the front, and the stretcher actually lays between the wheels. As far as the patients were concerned, it was excellent. The ride in the back is absolutely unbelievable. It cost something like about £36,000. And at that stage, an ambulance was probably 8,000 or 9,000 in 1970-71. So this was a very expensive vehicle.
While it took the ambulance until the 1970s to reach its ultimate form, the fire engine had its golden age during the 60s. Nearly all the major commercial vehicle manufacturers became involved, with local authorities like Surrey producing their own bespoke coachwork.
This fire engine here is Dennis F24. It was brand new to Esher Fire Station in January 1961. And it remained there in service until 1974. It cost just over £4,000 when it was brand new, and I think you can call it good value for money. They had 17 years service out of it. It's a unique machine in as much that it was only 7'6" wide, it could go down the lanes, but it's very, very fast. It's as fast as your new fire engines are today.
A little like a Swiss Army knife, a classic fire engine hides a multitude of functions and useful tools.
It's got an electric bell and a hand bell, and we keep two-tone horns on it. This is the sub-officer's little side light for looking at the numbers of houses. Sub-officer would have sat in here, the driver the other side, and it would have run with a three-man crew in the back. So there's 5 firemen all together. In here was a hose locker. This is the old canvas type of hose. They used to have hang it up in the towers when they'd been to a fire, dry it all out, and then roll it all up, scrub it and clean it, put it back on the machine. In this locker here, we have a Coventry Climax light portable pump. This is the Hillman engine, but it's a very powerful little pump. Hose reels were either side. It's got a Dennis 500 gun a minute pump on the back, and this is the days of a real fire engine. You'd hear these things coming down the road, the old bells ringing, and the firemen were all there with all the black gear, and as they went down the road, you'd normally see loads of kids going down the road, follow after it. You'd see a fire down the road, a grass fire or something, and there'd be 100 people standing there watching it. We're up to 40 mile an hour. We're going up to 50. We've got a nice straight road here. We're now going up nearly to 60 mile an hour. You can hear that engine roaring away. It's a 6.5 litre Rolls-Royce engine. One of the characteristics of this machine is when you were taking your foot off the throttle after a long run, you could stick your head out the window like this and you'd see a sheet of flame come straight out of the exhaust pipe. So you can imagine the oncoming traffic seeing a sheet of flame come out. That would frighten the life out of them. These were the first automatic fire engines that Surrey Fire Brigade had anyway. They were quite a new invention at the time. And the road holding was very good. Now we're carrying 400 gallons of water and the machine is fully stowed. You've got an all-up weight of about 7 tonnes. You have to think of read the road ahead all the time because you can't stop them. I do know that the lads used to love driving them. And when these got replaced by modern fire engines, they weren't very happy at all. they were a real fire engine as opposed to appliances today, which all look the same. Just looks like a bread van, really, with a ladder on the roof.
The Carmichael Cougar is definitely not a bread van with a ladder on the roof. A long way from a chip pan fire or even the Blitz, the aviation fire requires something special. An airport fire tender is expected to achieve a response time of 2 minutes. That's from leaving the station to extinguishing the fire. Any longer than this, and it simply isn't worth them trying. Operated by just 2 men, with its 8-wheel drive and unofficial top speed of 100 miles an hour, the Cougar is the ultimate specialist emergency vehicle.